The wind howled through the icy wilderness, carrying the scent of blood and desperation. Kian crouched low in the snow, his spear clutched tightly in his gloved hands. The reindeer herd was just ahead, their dark silhouettes moving cautiously against the endless white. Hunger gnawed at his stomach, but he steadied his breathing, waiting for the perfect moment. Then, a low growl shattered the stillness. Kian's head snapped toward the sound. Just beyond the herd, a shadow moved, large, deliberate, and dangerous. Wolves. The predators had been trailing the humans for days, keeping to the periphery, watching and waiting. Kian's tribe had lost a child to them the previous moon, and the wounds were still fresh. Fear and hatred bubbled in his chest, but he remained still. Any sudden movement could scare the reindeer or attract the wolves' attention. From the corner of his eye, he spotted a young wolf pup limping through the snow. It was small and scrawny, its white fur matted with blood. Abandoned by its pack, it struggled to keep up with the larger wolves. For a moment, its golden eyes locked with Kian's. It was a look not of challenge, but of desperation. Kian frowned. The pup wasn't a threat, it was dying. Yet, something about its gaze made him hesitate. He turned his attention back to the hunt, but the image of those golden eyes lingered. When the time came, Kian moved with precision. He hurled his spear, striking a reindeer in the side. The animal let out a strangled cry and collapsed into the snow. The herd scattered, and Kian sprinted forward, shouting for his tribe to follow. But the wolves were faster. As Kian approached his kill, the alpha wolf lunged for the carcass, its massive jaws clamping down on the flesh. Kian shouted and raised his spear, ready to defend his prize. Before he could strike, a yelp echoed behind him. The limping pup had collapsed in the snow, too weak to continue. The alpha wolf hesitated, glancing back at the pup, then at Kian. For a brief moment, the hunter and predator stood frozen, locked in a silent standoff. The alpha growled and backed away, retreating with its pack. The reindeer was Kian's, but his gaze fell to the pup, lying helpless in the snow. "Leave it," his tribe leader growled as the others approached. "It's just a wolf." Kian didn't respond. He knelt beside the pup, gently brushing the snow from its fur. It flinched, but didn't have the strength to resist. Against his better judgment, Kian scooped the pup into his arms. The tribe murmured uneasily, but Kian ignored them. Something deep inside told him this was no ordinary wolf. This was the beginning of something extraordinary. The pup shivered violently in Kian's arms, its tiny body radiating heat against the cold. Its breath came in shallow, ragged gasps. Kian felt the weight of the tribe's stares pressing on him as they made their way back to camp. The elder, a stooped figure wrapped in layers of furs, walked beside him, her eyes sharp despite her age. "You court danger, Kian," she said in a low voice. "The wolves are not our friends. That pup may grow and bite the hand that feeds it." Kian didn't reply. He knew the risks. He had seen what wolves could do, how they tore flesh from bone with terrifying efficiency. But this pup wasn't a threat. Not now. It was barely alive. By the time they reached the camp, the sun had dipped below the horizon, painting the snow in shades of blue and gray. Smoke curled from the tribe's central fire, where a small group of hunters were roasting strips of meat. Kian carried the pup to his shelter, a crude lean-to made of animal hides and branches, and laid it gently on a pile of furs. The pup whimpered, but didn't open its eyes. One of the younger hunters, a wiry man named Jorik, approached with a scowl. "You're wasting food on that thing?" he demanded, pointing at the pup. "We're barely feeding ourselves." "It won't take much," Kian replied, reaching into his pouch for a strip of dried meat. He soaked it in water to soften it before holding it to the pup's nose. At first, there was no response, but then the pup's nose twitched. Slowly, it opened its eyes and began to chew weakly on the meat. Jorik scoffed. "You're mad. When it grows strong, it'll turn on us." "Let it grow strong first," Kian said. "Then we'll see." Jorik muttered something under his breath and walked away, but Kian didn't care. He watched as the pup finished the meat and settled back into the furs, It's breathing steadier now. Larka, he whispered. The name had come to him suddenly, unbidden. But it felt right. That's what I'll call you. The days that followed were a trial for both Kian and Larka. The pup grew stronger with each passing day, her limp fading as her injuries healed. At first, she stayed close to Kian, hiding in his shelter and avoiding the suspicious gazes of the other tribe members. But as her strength returned, so did her curiosity. One morning, Kian woke to find Larka nosing through the camp's meager food stores. The hunters shouted angrily, brandishing their weapons as if she were a full-grown wolf. Kian stepped between them, his spear lowered in warning. She's just a pup, he said. She's a wolf, Jorik snapped. And she doesn't belong here. The elder intervened, her voice calm but firm. Enough. Kian has chosen to take responsibility for the creature. If it causes trouble, the blame will fall on him. Kian nodded, grateful but wary. He knew he was walking a fine line. If Larka caused too much trouble, the tribe would demand her death. From that day on, Kian kept Larka close. He taught her to stay out of the food stores and to follow him silently when they went hunting. To his surprise, she quickly became an asset. Her keen nose helped him track prey, and her presence seemed to keep other predators at bay. The first time she helped him bring down a deer, the tribe's attitude began to shift. She's useful, one of the hunters admitted grudgingly as they feasted on fresh venison. For now. But not everyone was convinced. Jorik continued to grumble, and the elder remained cautious. The bond between man and wolf is unnatural, she warned Kian one evening. Tread carefully, or it will end in blood. As the winter deepened, food grew scarcer. The wolves, too, became bolder, circling the camp at night and howling their hunger. Larka bristled whenever she heard them, her golden eyes glowing in the firelight. Kian wondered if she missed her pack or if she even remembered them. One night, the howling grew louder, closer. The tribe gathered around the fire, their weapons drawn. Larka stood at Kian's side, growling low in her throat. They're testing us, the elder said grimly. If we show weakness, they'll attack. The wolves didn't come that night, but their presence lingered. The tribe grew restless, their fear threatening to boil over into violence. Jorik was the first to voice what many were thinking. It's her, he said, pointing at Larka. She's drawing them to us. They smell her, and they think we're weak. Kian clenched his fists. She's one of us now. She's a wolf, Jorik shouted. And wolves don't belong in our camp. The argument escalated until the elder intervened once again. Enough. If the wolves attack, we'll deal with them. Until then, we focus on survival. But that night, as Kian lay awake beside Larka, he couldn't shake the feeling that the elder was right. The bond between man and wolf was fragile, and it would take more than loyalty to keep it from breaking. The following day, the tribe set out on a hunt. The cold gnawed at their resolve, but hunger drove them forward. Larka trotted beside Kian, her nose to the ground. She sniffed and stopped, her ears pricked forward. Kian signaled the hunters to halt. She's found something, Jorik sneered. Or she's leading us to her pack. Ignoring him, Kian crouched low, following Larka. They reached a clearing where a herd of reindeer grazed on lichen beneath the snow. The hunters exchanged glances, their expressions softening with relief. This was their chance. The tribe worked in silence, fanning out to encircle the herd. Kian kept Larka close, her quiet presence calming his nerves. When the signal came, the hunters launched their attack. Spears flew, and the herd scattered. Kian's spear struck true, felling a large buck. But as the hunters rushed to claim their kill, a deep growl rumbled through the clearing. From the shadows, a pack of wolves emerged. Their golden eyes glinted in the fading light, and their leader, a massive gray wolf, stepped forward, teeth bared. The hunters froze, clutching their weapons. Larka growled, stepping in front of Kian. This is it, Jorik hissed. She's betrayed us. No, Kian said, his voice firm. He stepped forward, placing a hand on Larka's back. Let her handle this. Larka advanced slowly, her posture low but confident. She whined softly, a sound that seemed to carry an unspoken message. The gray wolf hesitated, his ears twitching. The pack behind him shifted uneasily. For a moment, it seemed as if the standoff would end in blood. But then the gray wolf huffed, backing away. One by one, the pack followed, disappearing into the trees. The hunters stared in stunned silence. "She saved us," one of them whispered. Jork scowled but said nothing. The incident in the clearing marked a shift in the tribe's perception of Larka. No longer was she seen as a threat. She was now a guardian, a bridge between the humans and the wilderness. Over time, other wolves began to approach the camp, drawn by Larka's presence. At first, the tribe was wary, but Kian noticed something extraordinary. The wolves weren't attacking. They were watching, waiting. "They're testing us," the elder said one evening, her tone contemplative. "Your bond with Larka has opened a door. But doors can swing both ways." The wolves began to follow the hunters on their expeditions, keeping their distance, but never interfering. One night, when the camp was raided by a rival tribe, the wolves defended them, driving the attackers away. This act of loyalty solidified the bond between man and wolf. The harsh winter eventually gave way to spring, and with it came new challenges. The rival tribe, angered by their failed raid, began targeting the hunters. Kian's tribe was outnumbered and outmatched, but they had one advantage: the wolves. Under Kian's guidance, the tribe and the wolves worked together to protect their territory. The wolves scouted ahead, alerting the humans to danger. In return, the humans shared their food, ensuring the wolves never went hungry. Larka, now fully grown, became a symbol of this alliance. She was no longer just Kian's companion. She was a leader in her own right, guiding her pack and teaching them to trust the humans. The rival tribe launched a full-scale attack at dawn, hoping to catch Kian's tribe off guard. But they were ready. The wolves and the humans fought side by side, their movements perfectly synchronized. Larka led the charge, her fierce growl echoing through the battlefield. Kian fought with everything he had, his spear striking true time and time again. Beside him, Larka took down one enemy after another, her speed and strength unmatched. By the time the sun set, the rival tribe had been defeated. But the victory came at a cost. Larka was injured, her side torn by a spear. Kian knelt beside her, his hands trembling as he tried to stop the bleeding. "You'll be fine," he whispered, his voice breaking. "You have to be." The tribe gathered around them, their faces somber. The elder stepped forward, placing a hand on Kian's shoulder. "She'll live," she said. "And so will we, thanks to her." Larka recovered from her injuries, but she was never the same. The battle had aged her, and she began to spend more time resting, watching over the camp from a distance. Her pack, however, thrived. Several of the wolves had begun to spend more time with the humans, their trust growing stronger with each passing day. Over generations, the bond between man and wolf deepened. The wolves that stayed with the humans became more than allies. They became companions. They learned to understand human commands, to guard the camp, and to hunt alongside the tribe. In return, the humans provided food, shelter, and care. The wolves changed, their wild edges softening. Their descendants were smaller, their temperaments gentler. These were the first dogs, born from the unique bond between man and wolf. Thousands of years later, the story of Kian and Larka was little more than a legend, passed down through generations. But its legacy remained. In a bustling modern city, a young girl walked through the park with her dog, a golden retriever with eyes as bright as the sun. The dog barked happily, chasing after a ball, and the girl laughed. Across time and space, the bond between humans and dogs endured, a testament to the courage and trust of a young hunter and a curious wolf who dared to defy the odds. And so, dogs remained man's best friend, their loyalty and love a gift that would never be forgotten.